welcome to the deep dive. If you're tuning in, you're likely looking for ways to really understand things deeply. And today, well, we're diving into something so many English learners face, that really awkward pause when you're speaking. You know that feeling, right?
Yeah.
You're mid-sentence, things are going okay, and then bam, your brain just stops. You're stuck, searching for a word, and the whole conversation just feels, well, slow and kind of incomplete. Definitely not confident.
Right.
And that freezing moment doesn't mean you're not smart or don't know English. It's more like a traffic jam in getting the words out. So our mission today is to basically clear that jam. We've gone through a lot of material looking at mental tricks, physical practice, all sorts of things. We've pulled out the most practical, actionable steps to help you skip that pause, get a more natural flow, and just sound more confident when you speak. We want to respect your time and give you what works.
Okay, great. So let's start by digging into the why. Before we jump to solutions, why do our brains hit the brakes like that, even when we technically know the language? Yeah, good question. The sources we reviewed are pretty consistent on this. They point to three main reasons why people pause nervously. The first one is probably the most obvious, just not having the right vocabulary ready to go.
The word is on the tip of your tongue, but not quite there.
Exactly. Your mind goes blank because that specific word or phrase isn't immediately accessible. So you stop, you search, and silence. That's the pause. The second big one, and this is a really common habit that causes trouble, is translating in your head. Thinking first in your native language, then trying to convert it to English on the fly.
Right. So that sounds exhausting.
It is. It adds this whole extra mental step, slows everything down, breaks the rhythm, and sometimes the sentence structure ends up sounding a bit off, even if the words are technically correct. It's just not how a native speaker might phrase it.
So we're basically doing double the work right when we need to be quickest. Okay, what's the third reason? You mentioned it's more psychological.
It really is. The third factor is nervousness, or maybe chasing perfection, worrying constantly about grammar mistakes or pronunciation or sounding silly. That fear actually takes up brain power.
So you're spending energy worrying instead of just talking.
Precisely. Your brain is busy self-monitoring, checking for errors, managing that fear, instead of focusing on getting the idea out. So even if you know what to say, you freeze because you're aiming for flawless instead of focusing on communication. But the good news is there are ways to work on all three of these, starting with how we think.
Okay, let's talk about those mental techniques then. For instant flow, the research seemed to really stress this idea that fluency isn't just about knowing words, but about how you plan your ideas, right?
Exactly right. Which leads us to something called keyword planning. One source had this great analogy. Think of it like planning a road trip. You know where you're going, maybe a few key cities you'll pass through, but you don't memorize every single street name beforehand.
Okay, I like that. Less pressure.
Yeah, so instead of trying to build these perfect, elaborate sentences in your head, which the source compared to building a house out of glass, very fragile. You just jot down mentally maybe 3 to 5 keywords or core ideas.
That does sound like a relief, not having to prescript everything.
Yeah.
But if I only focus on keywords, won't I sound a bit robotic
Yeah.
or choppy?
That's a fair point. The trick is the keywords are just your quick map, your anchor points, not the script itself. So say someone asks, "What did you do yesterday?" Instead of panicking, you quickly think, "Yesterday, park met friend." Just those 3 anchors. Takes like a second or two.
Okay.
Then you speak using those anchors to guide you. "Oh, yesterday I went to the park. Yeah, it was nice. I met up with a friend there." See? The key words just kept you moving from one idea to the next without stopping to search. It's about momentum.
Gotcha. So the keywords are like stepping stones across a stream. Keeps you moving. Okay, but what about that big hurdle, the translation habit? How do we actually train ourselves to, think in English more directly?
Right, that's the goal, switching the brain's operating system. And it's definitely a skill you build up, doesn't matter what level you're at now. Step 1 is super simple. Just start with single words.
Single words, how does that work?
Just look around you during the day and mentally label things in English, silently in your head. Bed, coffee, computer, window, tree, just constantly associating the English word directly with the object or concept. No translation needed.
Okay, simple enough. Building direct connections. What's next?
Step 2 is moving to simple, complete sentences. But internally, like a little inner monologue in English. When you're doing simple tasks, narrate them to yourself. Cooking, for example. Okay, I'm cutting the onion now, need some oil, I'm adding salt. Simple descriptions of your actions.
Like practicing commentary in your head.
Sort of, yeah. And step 3 is what you might call functional English. Mentally rehearse common practical phrases you'd use in real life, Ordering coffee. Could I have a latte, please? Asking for directions. Excuse me, how do I get to the station? Practice these useful chunks in your head.
So, by doing these drills, when you actually need to speak, the brain is already kind of primed to think in English, bypassing that translation step.
That's the idea. It becomes more automatic. You're building that mental muscle.
Which of those steps, based on the research, do people find the hardest to stick with? Is it the complex stuff?
Actually, surprisingly, it's often step one, the labeling. It feels too simple, maybe? People want to jump to complex sentences, but consistently doing that basic word association is really the foundation. It starts rewiring the brain.
Interesting. Okay, so we're training the brain to think in English. But even then, sometimes you just need a second to process, right? You need something to keep the conversation going while your brain catches up. That's where these verbal tools come in.
Exactly. This is about having tools to bridge those tiny gaps. We're talking about fillers and linking words. Fillers are those little words or sounds we all use. Well, actually, let me think.
Things we sometimes worry make us sound hesitant.
Right, but used well, they're natural, they fill the silence, they signal your thinking, and they buy you that crucial second or two without a dead stop. It keeps the connection alive.
Okay, but you mentioned earlier there's a risk of overdoing it. How do you find that balance? So it's a helpful bridge, not just noise.
Moderation is key.
Yeah.
Sprinkling in a well, or let me see, sounds thoughtful. Using like or every other word, that becomes distracting, undermines credibility. So conscious, sparing use. But perhaps even more useful structurally are linking words or connectors. These are words that explicitly join your ideas together, first, then, next, however, also, finally.
Oh, the transition words.
Exactly. If you actively use them, they create a smooth path from one sentence to the next. So instead of, I woke up and went running, I had breakfast, I went to work, which sounds choppy.
Yeah, very robotic.
Right. You use connectors. First, I woke up early, then I went for a run. After that, I had breakfast, and finally, I headed off to work. See the difference? It flows, and it sounds like fluent thought.
Definitely. It guides the listener, too. Now, let's talk about sentence length. It's tempting to try and sound smart with really long, complex sentences, isn't it? But the research seems to say, don't do that, at least not at first. Why?
Because complexity takes up too much brain power in the moment. When you try to build a really long, intricate sentence, you're juggling grammar, vocabulary, tense, structure, all at once. It dramatically increases the chance you'll overload and just stop.
So the advice is keep it simple, especially when you're focused on building fluency.
Yes. Prioritize flow over complexity initially. Use shorter, clearer sentences. You can always build up later.
Can you give us that example from the sources, the one about breaking down a complicated thought?
Sure. Imagine trying to say this all in one go. Yesterday, although I felt quite tired after working a very long shift, I made the decision to go with my friend to the supermarket, primarily because we needed to purchase some specific items for a barbecue we are planning.
Wow. Yeah, that's a mouthful. Lots of places to stumble there.
Totally. Now, break it down. I was pretty tired yesterday after a long shift, but I went to the supermarket with my friend anyway. We needed to get food for a barbecue. 3 simple, clear sentences. Gets the same information across, but smoothly. No pauses needed.
Much easier to manage. It feels less like walking a tightrope.
Okay, and one more tool. Common phrases. Why are these so important for flow?
Think of them as pre-made language chunks, like Lego blocks. Phrases like, I totally agree with you, or that's a really good point, or let me think about that, or by the way.
Things you hear all the time.
Exactly. Because they're common, you can pull the whole phrase from memory instantly. You don't have to construct it word by word or translate it. It just comes out. It bypasses that whole creation process, saving time and preventing pauses.
Yeah.
The advice is pick maybe 5 or 10 really useful ones and just memorize them cold.
Right, having those ready to deploy. Okay, this is great on the mental and verbal side. But the research also talked about a physical aspect, treating speech like an athlete training their body. Yes, absolutely. It's physiological, too. Improving flow isn't just mental, it requires physical training. The first fundamental piece is breathing. Your breath is literally the power source for your voice.
How does breathing affect pausing?
Well, when people get nervous, their breathing often gets shallow and quick. Less air means a weaker voice, which can actually make you feel more nervous. It also means less oxygen getting to the brain, which doesn't help clear thinking. So using your breath properly helps calm nerves and gives your brain a moment to organize.
So take a breath before you start speaking.
Yes, a conscious, calm breath. And there's even a specific technique mentioned, the 4-2-6 breath. You inhale slowly for a count of 4, hold the breath gently for 2, and then exhale slowly for 6. Doing this a few times can actually calm your nervous system down. It prepares you physically and mentally.
4-2-6. Got it. Okay, what about training the actual mouth muscles? How do we get them moving faster than the fear?
This one sounds a bit weird, but it's used by pros. Speed speaking practice. You take a short piece of text, an article, anything, and you read it out loud 3 times in a row. And each time, you deliberately read it faster than feels comfortable.
Faster. Won't that just cause more mistakes?
You ignore the mistakes. That's crucial. The point isn't accuracy here. It's pure physical momentum. You're training your mouth, your tongue, your lips to just keep moving, to get used to producing sounds quickly and continuously, overriding that impulse to stop when you stumble.
Okay, interesting. Training for speed to overcome the freeze response. What else on the physical side?
Mimicry. This is about retraining your pronunciation and rhythm. Find a speaker you admire, maybe an actor, a newsreader, someone with clear speech. Listen to like 30 seconds or a minute of them talking.
Okay.
Then pause the recording every few seconds and repeat exactly what they said. Try to match their sounds, their rhythm, their intonation, everything. Like a child learning by copying. You're physically teaching your mouth and vocal cords how to produce English sounds smoothly.
Like shadowing someone's speech pattern. And what about handling pressure? Real conversations aren't always smooth sailing.
Right. You need to practice under pressure. The idea is to train harder than the real thing. 2 specific methods were suggested. First, record yourself talking for, say, 2 minutes straight. No stopping allowed. Just keep talking, even if you run out of things to say or make mistakes. Force that continuous output.
2 minutes straight. That sounds tough.
It is. The second one is even tougher. Ask a friend or family member to deliberately interrupt you while you're talking. Ask them to jump in with questions mid-sentence.
Whoa, okay. Why is that helpful? That sounds really disruptive.
Because real conversations are disruptive sometimes. This trains you to handle interruptions gracefully, to pause, respond, and then, crucially, find your way back to your original point without completely losing your train of thought or freezing up. It builds resilience.
Makes sense. Train for chaos to handle the everyday. There was one more technique mentioned for flow. Storytelling. Why is telling a story easier than just stating facts?
Stories have a natural structure, don't they? A beginning, a middle, an end. That built-in framework helps guide your thoughts and keeps the words flowing along a path. The advice is interesting. Focus on pictures, not words.
Pictures, not words.
Yeah. Instead of thinking about the exact language, visualize the scene you're describing, like playing a movie in your head. If you narrate that mental movie, describing what you see, the words often come more naturally, more vividly, because they're tied to imagery, not abstract rules.
That's a great tip. Okay, we've covered a lot of do's. What about the don'ts? What are the common traps people fall into when they're trying to improve their flow but maybe doing it the wrong way?
Good point. There are definitely pitfalls. The sources highlighted 4 main ones. First, speaking too fast. People often confuse speed with fluency. They're not the same.
Rushing isn't fluency.
No. Rushing often makes you more likely to stumble, make mistakes, and then have to pause to correct yourself. Fluency is about smooth rhythm, not just speed. Slow down a little.
Okay. Second trap. We touched on it, but it's worth repeating.
Overusing fillers, yes. A few are fine, natural even. But relying too heavily on every few words just makes you sound hesitant and can really distract the listener. Use them sparingly.
Got it. And the third?
This happens when panic sets in. Forgetting to breathe or plan, just launching into speech without taking that calming breath or doing that quick keyword planning we talked about, that often leads straight to getting stuck down the line. A short, controlled pause to think is always better than a panicked freeze.
Right. Plan briefly, breathe, then speak. And the final trap.
This is maybe the biggest one. Chasing perfection. Constantly stopping yourself mid-sentence to fix a tiny grammar point or search for a more impressive word. This kills flow completely.
So the mantra should be?
Movement over perfection. Seriously. It's far better to communicate your idea clearly using simple language and keeping the conversation moving than it is to constantly stop and start in pursuit of flawless English. Clarity and connection beat grammatical perfection for fluency.
That leads perfectly into the last point. Are all pauses bad? We've been talking about eliminating the nervous freeze, but can pauses actually be good?
Absolutely. The issue isn't the silence itself, it's the reason for the silence. Freezing out of fear or lack of words is the problem. But you can absolutely turn pauses into power.
How does that work?
An intentional, controlled pause is different. Imagine you make a key point. You stop speaking for a second or two. You maintain eye contact, maybe nod slightly, keep your posture confident. That doesn't read as lost.
It reads as thoughtful, confident.
Exactly. It signals you're letting your point sink in. It gives the audience a moment to process. It can add emphasis, make you seem more authoritative, more considered. A well-placed pause can actually make your speech more impactful, not less. It shows you're in control.
That's a fantastic distinction. It's not about eliminating silence, but controlling it. Okay, this has been incredibly useful. So, for you listening, the big takeaway here is that speaking smoothly, avoiding those awkward freezes, it's not some magical talent. It's really about managing specific habits, mental and physical.
Right. And getting better at this has real-world benefits. Making a stronger impression in interviews, getting your ideas across more clearly at work or with friends, just feeling more confident in everyday interactions. The final advice really is to combine these things. Start nudging your brain to think in English. Use those shorter sentences at first. Pay attention to your breathing. Practice consistently, even if it's just a little each day. And importantly, celebrate the small wins like talking for 30 seconds or a minute without that deer in headlights pause. It builds momentum.
And maybe we can leave you with one final thought, something that builds on all this. The real secret to speaking without those painful pauses. It might not be about trying desperately to avoid making mistakes. It's more about embracing movement. Real fluency seems to come when you allow yourself to speak imperfectly, but consistently. Keep talking, keep practicing, until your focus shifts away from your own fear and onto the message itself, the power and clarity of what you actually want to share.